Why more efficient? Because, for example, I want, to do a VLOOKUP. Likewise, for it to give me the full name, and I need it to get my ID. As I explained to you about the data table, it starts from the reference column that I'm using. I can't get an ID because the data table has to go to the right. So any data that is to the left of my reference, I wouldn't be able to get. And that's where XLOOKUP comes in. XLOOKUP, one of the things it can do is it lets us choose the column that we want. For example, I'm going to do an XLOOKUP here. I'm going to select the full name as a reference. I go to data, and what it's going to ask me here is to tell it where the column is that has that data, just the column. So in this case, the column with the full names is BB. I select it with control space. I can put a comma, and then I have to tell it what I want it to return to me, which specific column. In this case, the column I want is AA. See that it's a column located to the left of my reference column, but since this is an XLOOKUP, it won't affect me, and it will indeed bring me the data. As you can see here, I can fetch it and it will work just fine. Another improvement that XLOOKUP offers, let's add another formula here, is that I'm going to select the full column name here, right? I'll choose the full column name so it knows where to look, and what I needed was address, town, and phone number. The improvement I wanted to show you is that I can select all the columns within the same formula, and once I press enter, the rest of the data will populate here. If you look here, this H and this I were populated based on the formula that I have input. So it's quicker. I'm going to hit tab again, and there we have the data. Another improvement with XLOOKUP is that, for instance, if I come here to the data section, and if I modify a column that it is not within the database, see that absolutely nothing is going to happen to me. But notice that here, the VLOOKUP database is inside column E and column L. So we're going to go and insert something inside those columns for you guys to see. For example, I'm going to insert more columns here. I go back to practice and see that everything is already at 0. These values here are fixed because remember that what we did was copy and paste them, and this 0 is from here because in the end I put a formula on it. So you see that the XLOOKUP does remain constant. Regardless of whether I modify something that is inside the database or outside the database, it will always be able to grab the corresponding column. Why? Because here I'm delimiting in VLOOKUP, I'm delimiting a database, and I'm also giving the column number that I want within that database. But here in XLOOKUP, I'm not using a database with a range. Instead, I'm selecting columns. That means that if someone comes and inserts a column, my column of formulas will also change, and therefore I won't have any errors. So we could see what suits us best. We want a formula that always brings us a specific column, whether it's column A, B, or C, where I know they will always put the updated data. I understand that this data will be updated, and that's okay. Or I prefer to have a formula that, regardless of whether someone adds columns or removes columns, always respects the columns that I put in the beginning. It will depend a lot on what we are doing, the project we are working on, and what we want to show. This was the session where we covered VLOOKUP and its improved version, XLOOKUP. I hope you were able to learn something. If so, I would greatly appreciate a reaction, and I invite you to watch the next videos. Thank you very much and goodbye.